It almost begs belief when looking through the paintings of Yves Tanguy that such perfect technique of dramatic lighting and shadows, cold atmospheres, and such organic looking imagery could be achieved by an artist that had little to no formal training in art whatsoever. Stepping into a painting by Yves Tanguy is akin to traversing the threshold of a dreamscape, where biomorphic shapes morph into impossible landscapes bathed in an unsettling yet strangely alluring light. His canvases imbued with the spirit of surrealism transport us to the realms where logic surrenders to the fantastical and the subconscious reigns supreme. To analyse Tanguy's art is to embark on a voyage of discovery, navigating through meticulously rendered yet ambiguous forms, each whispering secrets and sparking the imagination. In this video, we will delve into the captivating world of some of Tanguy's strangest paintings, dissecting their unique visual language and exploring the artistic influences that shape them. We will journey through recurring themes in his work, such as the interplay between vastness and intimacy, the unsettling beauty of decay, and the enigmatic presence of shadows. We will also examine Tanguy's relationship with the Surrealist movement, analysing how his individual voice resonated with the collective subconscious. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to see more videos from me on the weird and wonderful side of art. Welcome to another video, everyone, and prepare to be bewildered, intrigued, and perhaps even challenged as we navigate through the jarring paintings of Yves Tanguy. Born on the 5th of January 1900 in Paris, Yves Tanguy's life, like his paintings, unfolded in a series of dramatic forms. Tragedy would strike him and his family from an early age, with his father dying in 1908 and his brother being killed during the First World War. As he grew older, he gravitated towards the sea, spending time on merchant ships and later finding inspiration in its vastness and mystery. In 1920, he was conscripted into the French army in Tunis, where he met the poet Jacques Prévert, who was apparently amused by Tanguy's eccentric and strange habits, from chewing his socks to eating live spiders. The latter became a party trick that he would often repeat. But it was a vibrant partisan art scene during this decade that truly began to shift him towards the art world. A life-changing encounter with the Giorgio di Chirico painting in 1923 sparked Tanguy's artistic journey. Drawn to the Surrealist movement's exploration of the subconscious and the irrational, he quickly found himself surrounded by the likes of André Breton and René Magritte. Despite having no formal training, Tanguy's unique style blossomed, characterized by meticulously rendered biomorphic shapes, barren landscapes bathed in ethereal light, and a sense of suspended animation. His paintings, with titles like Indefinite Divisibility, for example, or Through Birds, Through Fire, but Not Through Glass, invited viewers to abandon conventional logic and delve into dreamscapes, where familiar objects morphed into strange, suggestive forms. He became a key figure in Surrealism, exhibiting extensively, gaining critical acclaim for his dreamlike visions. In 1939, love led Tanguy across the Atlantic, where he met and married fellow artist Kay Sage, who shared a relatively similar style to Tanguy, and who I think may in fact also be worth exploring on his channel someday. Settling in Connecticut, Tanguy continued to paint prolifically, finding inspiration in the American landscape while retaining his distinct European-influenced style. During World War II, he became a vocal advocate for exiled artists and participated in exhibitions alongside other European surrealists who sought refuge in the United States. Tanguy's influence extended beyond the art world, inspiring filmmakers like Alfred Hitchcock and other famous surrealists like Salvador Dali. Despite his growing international recognition, Tanguy remained humble and dedicated to his craft. Sadly, he passed away in 1955 after suffering a fatal stroke, leaving behind a rich legacy of paintings that continue to captivate and inspire viewers today. The first painting we'll be looking at today is titled Mama, Papa is Wounded, completed in 1927, one of Tanguy's earliest masterpieces. This work invites both admiration and perplexity. Its enigmatic landscape, littered with seemingly unrelated objects, demands more than a fleeting glance, so let's try looking deeper and unveil the layers of meaning hidden within it. Dominating the canvas is a vast empty space bathed in an eerie greyish-violet light. This unearthly illumination, reminiscent of de Chirico's work, casts long, ominous shadows, contributing to an overall sense of desolation and unease. The barren desert-like terrain evokes a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a world stripped of comfort and familiarity. Scattered across the desolate landscape are several curious objects, seemingly defying conventional logic. A looming cactus-like form, tethered to a web-like structure, appears neither fully free or imprisoned. What appear to be what can only be described as beans or pebbles are scattered in different locations in the landscape, casting dramatic shadows onto the ground. A tall trunk or stalk of a plant covered in spikes appears on the right, with an ominous dark black mass behind it which looks like smoke or a dark rain cloud. There is also what looks like the shape of a torso that lies underneath it, lying abandoned. On the trunk of spikes is also a subtle sight of a green string wrapped around it, giving off the impression of a snake winding itself around a branch. In the distance, there is a strange pale pole that winds and bends and seems to be disintegrating into the wind. Next to it, almost appears like the shape of a ghost emerging from the ground with two dark beady eyes. These disconnected elements contribute to the painting's dreamlike quality, further blurring the lines between reality and the imagination. Adding to the enigma is the evocative title, Mama, Papa is Wounded. Does it reference an actual event, a primal fear, or perhaps a collective trauma of post-war society? Given its open-ended nature, the painting invites diverse interpretations. Due to what we already know of his beloved fallen brother, some see it as a reflection of the anxiety and violence that followed World War I, whilst others perceive a Freudian exploration of relationships and subconscious desires. According to one theory I came across, the yellow figure can be interpreted as the papa, the cactus as the mama, and the amorphous mass as a child, a family fractured and vulnerable in the face of an unknown threat. Though personally I see it slightly differently. I see the ominous dark mass emerging from the right to be the threat itself, whilst the landscape it's creeping in on to be a plateau of the mind and the different scattered objects to be a series of different emotions, such as hopelessness, loneliness and vulnerability, or the feeling of being trapped, which could be emphasized by the cactus that appears to be tied down. Ultimately, this painting transcends a singular interpretation. Its power lies in its ability to evoke emotions and generate personal narratives. The desolate landscape serves as a canvas for our own anxieties and fears, inviting us to confront the fragility of existence and the potential for pain within even the most basic human relationships. I should also point out, by the way, that this analysis is just one possible interpretation of a painting. The beauty of art like this lies in its subjectivity, and each viewer may find their own unique meaning within its enigmatic depths. And that's actually something I'd love to hear from you if you have another interpretation or notice something I may have missed, so please let me know in the comments below. This next work, called Noya Indifferent, painted in 1929, stands as another prime example of Tanguy's early surrealist style. While the title again offers little to no explanation, the painting itself, with the minimal and dark imagery it contains, radiates a really strong aura of mystery and intrigue that's very much worth exploring. The canvas is dominated by inky blackness, creating a sense of foreboding vastness. Against this void, 4 biomorphic forms float, defying gravity and defying identification. Are they organic growths, technological relics, or products of a subconscious? Their ambiguity fuels the viewer's imagination. And as for the central motif, a wispy pale structure occupies the space, reminiscent of a ghost or strands of smoke. Light seems to emanate from nowhere, sharply highlighting the forms. This play of light reinforces the dreamlike quality and creates a sense of depth within the flat canvas. A common interpretation you may come across for this piece surrounds Tanguy's frequent goal to tap the unconscious mind and create dreamlike imagery. Noya Indifferent embodies this perfectly, offering a visual representation of subconscious thoughts and desires, unburdened by logic or reason. Notably, Carl Jung, a leading psychologist interested in surrealism, purchased the painting in 1929, during a time when Yves Tanguy was practically unknown to the art world. He personally saw it as reflecting human detachment and bleakness, potentially influenced by the anxieties of the interwar period. Jung kept it in his study, where it influenced and maybe even helped inspire his theory of a collective unconsciousness in 1958. Of course, Tanguy himself ultimately left his works open to interpretation, stating that he aimed to evoke emotions rather than convey specific messages. The viewer is lured in to project their own experiences and feelings onto the canvas, finding personal meaning within the ambiguity. In terms of technique, Tanguy meticulously rendered the forms with smooth, almost photorealistic precision, heightening the contrast with their uncanny nature. This painting stands out as more focused on biomorphic forms and dreamlike landscapes, though as we'll see shortly, his later works explored more mechanical and architectural elements. Noya Indifference serves as a powerful and enigmatic work, capturing the essence of his creativity in even his most primitive years. Its haunting imagery, open-ended meaning, and connection to the subconscious mind continues to invoke and inspire. It's a real testament to Tanguy's ability to translate the dream world into a captivating visual experience. Indefinite Divisibility, completed in 1942, plunges us into a realm where recognizable objects morph into strange forms and the familiar landscape devolves into the unknown. Here Tanguy paints not only to depict reality, but to again evoke our emotions and ignite the viewer's imagination without explanation. Tanguy famously painted without any real planning or forethought. As he explained himself, quote, "The painting develops before my eyes, unfolding its surprises as it progresses." End quote. The composition unfolds like a desolate beach at twilight. Sandy expanses stretch towards a hazy horizon immersed in a sky-like background, while strange biomorphic shapes dominate the foreground. Elongated phallic structures resemble petrified bones or eroded cliffs, casting long, menacing shadows. These ambiguous objects defy categorization, existing somewhere between the organic and the mechanical, the natural and the artificial. The scene is bathed in an unsettling light. A warm glow emanates from our right, highlighting the textures and contours of the forms. Yet this light also creates stark contrasts, emphasizing the shadows and contributing to the painting's eerie atmosphere. Is it dawn breaking or dusk settling? The ambiguity adds to the sense of mystery and fluidity of time. Tanguy weaves familiar objects into the scene, adding a layer of playful incongruity, such as propeller blades, bowls of water scattered across the landscape, and a rusty clamp that sits precariously on top of a structure. These everyday items, stripped of their original contexts, become their own characters in this dreamscape. Their presence invites viewers to create their own narratives and to decipher hidden meanings within the painting. The title, Indefinite Divisibility, hints at the painting's core theme. The scene seems endlessly divisible, each detail capable of further interpretation, and each object could either be attached or infused in some way, or simply as one with each other, eliminating a sense of duality. The organic forms appear porous, suggesting they could fragment further, revealing new depths and complexities. This endless divisibility offers opportunities where boundaries are fluid and meaning is multi-layered. According to a wonderfully in-depth analysis of this piece on theartstory.org, there are many interpretations we can take into account. For example, Lucian Freud, when viewing this painting, noted the heightened anxiety created by his use of dépaysement, meaning the state of disorientation experienced in dreams was a form of psychosis, delusions, and illusions. As for Tanguy, it was a source of power. It's key to remember that many of the most successful surrealists celebrated madness as both an inspiration and liberation. André Breton said once that in dreams you could kill, fly faster, love to your heart's content. Interestingly, in 1950, the Psychological Institute of Vienna displayed Tanguy's paintings beside those of schizophrenic patients to see if the public could distinguish between the two. As it turns out, they could not, and this result was one that delighted the surrealists. Breton believed that one day, Tanguy's images, quote, will be made clear with a language that is not yet understood, but which people are soon going to read, which they are going to talk, and which they are going to perceive is best adapted to the new changes. End quote. Indefinite Divisibility is more than just a painting, it's an invitation to explore the impossible and the realms of boundlessness. Tanguy masterfully utilizes light, shadow, and ambiguous forms to create an unsettling yet captivating atmosphere. As surreal art very well should do, this work continues to challenge viewers to question their perceptions and delve into the depths of their own mind. Now let's take a look at what could fairly be considered as one of Yves Tanguy's most famous works, in his 1943 painting titled Through Birds, Through Fire, but Not Through Glass. The painting features strange organic shapes reminiscent of bones, rocks, and melted wax. These forms defy categorization once again and create a sense of unease and wonder. The fiery reds and oranges beautifully clash with the icy blues and greys, creating a tension that reflects the duality of the title. Although again, the source of light is unclear, the contrasting light and shadow it creates add unsettling depth and mystery to the scene. Stones and wheel spokes defy gravity, floating in the air like impossible dreams. A tower-like formation composed of balloon shapes, giving off the impression of an enigmatic monument made of molten metal poured into ice-cold water. The lack of human figures emphasizes the isolation and vastness of a landscape, and of course, the title hints at multiple interpretations. Perhaps the title suggests that freedom and transformation require facing danger, but fragility poses a limit. Maybe it implies that inspiration, interpreted as fire, and communication, interpreted as birds, can transcend limitations, interpreted as glass, but require considerable effort. The title could be Tanguy's personal reflection on overcoming challenges in his efforts to explore the subconscious. Andre Breton stated that Tanguy, quote, condensed a few pure elements of matter meeting together and glowing suddenly like particles of dust dancing in a sunbeam. End quote. When keeping what Breton said into consideration when viewing this piece, it truly heightens the concept of how the individual self and the external world are in a constant state of flux. Through birds, through fire, but not through glass, is considered a masterpiece in its own right. Its captivating imagery and title challenges our perception of reality, showing bluntly how the inner and outer worlds are constantly at odds with each other, reminding us that there is certainly a physical world outside our minds, but how it truly, definitively appears can never really be determined. Only the mind of the individual itself can decide. Yves Tanguy's Rose of the Four Winds, painted in 1950, is a complex and evocative work that embodies the characteristics of his later style. While offering a fantastical landscape, it departs from the vivid colours and dreamlike softness of his earlier works, presenting a more unsettling and fragmented scene and consisting of a more saturated colour palette. The dominant feature is a towering structure on the left, reminiscent of a Gothic cathedral, yet composed of a haphazard assemblage of spiky objects, bones, and mineral formations, like a futuristic place of worship. This unsettling fusion of organic and inorganic materials creates a sense of instability, as if despite its dominating presence over the surrounding chaos below, it's still delicate, able to succumb at any given moment. The ground is littered with jagged debris, resembling the rubble of a destroyed city. The steely grey and pink sky adds to the apocalyptic atmosphere, evoking feelings of alienation and desolation. Though this bleakness contrasts with the title's rose, hinting a potential beauty beyond the immediate despair. The scene is bathed in an ominous cold light and accentuates the sharp edges and textures. This harsh illumination is heightened and emphasizes the stark contrast between the towering structure and the barren landscape. Shadow seems to play a pivotal role, creating pockets of mystery and hiding potential secrets within the composition. Several interpretations of Rose of the Four Winds exist out there. Considering that this was painted shortly after World War II, the work might reflect the artist's anxieties about the war and the destruction. The bleak landscape and fractured tower could symbolize the devastation left behind by the conflict. The juxtaposition of the imposing tower and the chaotic landscape may represent the struggle between order and disorder, control and freedom. The title of Rose of the Four Winds could symbolize a force of nature, both destructive and life-giving. Finally, I'd like us to take a look at Tanguy's very last painting, completed just months before his death, titled Multiplication of the Arcs, completed in 1954. This work is not only beautiful, but also a complex tapestry woven with symbolic undertones. To fully appreciate it, let's delve into its depths. Dominated by a vast foreground and a looming stormy sky, the painting evokes a sense of isolation. Curiously, instead of Tanguy's usual towering structures that were prevalent in a lot of his most famous works, here we see fragmented biomorphic shapes resembling bones, pebbles, and organic remains scattered across the ground, with no dominating structure in sight. Traditionally interpreted as symbols of authority, the absence of such a structure suggests decay, fragility, and possibly mortality. Considering the timing of a painting, it adds an unsettling foreshadowing of what awaited the artist. Earthy browns, yellows, and greys create a melancholic atmosphere, while subtle shades of blue offer a glimmer of hope in the distance. Often representing subconscious desires and fears in surrealism, here they hint at a connection to the natural world and its impermanence. The title refers to the repeated motifs, suggesting an abundance of possibilities, even in a seemingly lifeless and still landscape. The play of light and shadow creates a sense of mystery and depth, inviting a viewer to endlessly explore the scene further. In terms of this introspective landscape, this could be seen as Tanguy acknowledging both the finitude of life and the potential for renewal within natural cycles. Once again, the desolate landscape might reflect concerns about the war, destruction, and the fragility of human civilization. But despite its melancholic undertones, the open landscape and subtle light offer a sense of openness and continuity, a sense of an ending to which is also endless nonetheless, a horizon hidden from view, an exponential journey with infinite potential. But to be honest with you, I feel almost inappropriate for analysing art like this at times, because I really want to emphasise that point of infinite potential, which is truly the heart and soul of Tanguy's work. In reality, there really are no right or wrong answers. Tanguy embraced the automatic painting and drawing technique, letting his hand guide the brush, allowing for spontaneous, unconscious expression. So I could interpret his work till the cows come home, but will it get us any closer to a definitive answer? Absolutely not. That's the beauty of it. Like I mentioned in the first painting, there may be some details I missed or instances where I've just been overthinking, and your interpretations, no matter how different they are to mine, or the other theories I've uncovered from my research for these paintings, should be considered just as valid. Just because I, or someone far better trained in art than me, or even someone who knew Tanguy personally, can give an interpretation, we shouldn't just take it at face value. A work of art should be thoroughly investigated by the individual, and interpretations of others should be scrutinized, so that one may come to their own understanding. It's better to think of this video as just a seed that needs watering, a finger pointing the way to someone's own experience of Tanguy's work, rather than just taking them straight there. Yves Tanguy not only unconsciously expressed himself in his art, a technique that would be adopted by the likes of Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko, but he also executed his paintings with such striking detail and realism. I don't think even Salvador Dali accomplished such a skill in his art. In fact, it's well documented that Dali owes a lot of his style to Tanguy. At one point, Dali once told Tanguy's niece Agnes, quote, "I pinched everything from your uncle Yves," which to me is what really makes him stand out in the world of surrealists. His concepts are brimming with imagery, yet also strikingly minimal, simple, yet so vast in complexity. But where Dali was notably intimidated by space, Tanguy seemed to embrace it as something intimate and eternal, consoling and inevitable. Without a doubt, Yves Tanguy was one of a kind, within not just the surrealist movement, but within the art world in general. One of very few select artists to successfully create something to put on display, something for us to perceive, but also to deliberately make us look back inside ourselves, towards a world that we are often too anxious to look directly at, the environment of our own minds. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this was an interesting journey for you, and inspired you to delve deeper into the paintings of Yves Tanguy. Don't forget to leave your interpretations below in the comments as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Before I go, I want to wrap up this video with Artist Corner, where I get to share some artwork sent to me by one of my viewers. And today's featured bonus artist is Matej Kolar, a freelance illustrator from Slovakia. Matej has been doing art seriously for around 6 years, always having an instinctual desire to create, and has developed an amazingly surreal style of fantasy art, created via both traditional and digital drawing. He tells me that most of his themes stem from observing the world around him, observing through the lens of the dreamlike imagery you see here now, and creating symbols out of them. He gives many interesting backstories behind his pieces. For example, his artwork, Instar, was inspired from wanting to capture a feeling of growing and metamorphosis, a sort of jubilation and at the same time a lamentation for the past self. The Empress piece, he explains, was basically inspired from a sort of horror of womanhood. Perdition was based on a feeling of being trapped in an endless self-judging, self-punishing cycle. He also tells me that besides other artists, he is most influenced by books, video games, and music, with artists such as Bosch, Rembrandt, Edvard Munch, Remedios Varo, and Beczinski being some of his favourites. I really admire the rich imagination that Matej has. Every work of his seems more strange than the last, with an incredibly dark and looming threat to them. A perfect blend of beauty and horror that I personally love, and of course I think it's well worth exploring. Be sure to see more of his work on his website and on his Instagram page. Look up the links you see here on screen, or click the links below in the description. Please send me an email to blinddweller@gmail.com or reach out to me on Instagram if you too have some art you'd like to share with me. Finally, as always, a massive thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Here's a shout out to all of my top tier donators: Port Perea, Miles Z, Grape, Vladziv, Tyler Butler, Harley Raven, Eric Lamarca, Dave MC, Molotail, The New on Goem 24, Equatamok, Ken B, Lee Flowers, Calvin Kai, Akaiza, Carol H, and Charlie Sanchezi. That's me done for today. See you in the next one soon. Keep being creative, and bye for now.